Hello, and welcome to the Sticky Buns podcast. This is Blake, and Brandon won't be joining me today. It's going to be a little solo episode. It's just me on the mic, and we're just going to hit the ground running. This is going to be a little bit of a mini episode, and my plan was kind of to tell you a little bit about the Starfield timeline before the game, and just a bit of our plans for what we're going to do after Starfield release. So you get a little bit of lore and a little bit of our plans for Starfield, which both me and Brandon are just incredibly excited for. So at the time of this recording, the game has not been released, and when this episode comes out, it will have been in a period of early access. So I think Brandon's going to check it out in early access, and I guess this will be prior to the release of the game. So by the time you're hearing this, Brandon will have already gotten to play a little bit of this. So go check out his videos. Those are going to be on his Twitch, which is the Sticky Munchkin. Or I'm sorry, it is Sticky Munchkin. So that's Sticky and then MUNCHKIN, which I'll also have a link in the episode description. So go check out his videos, Sticky Munchkin. Check out his early hours in the game. And I'm planning on streaming this game as well. I will not be playing this game right at the release. I'm actually going on a little trip. So, I guess when you hear from me and Brandon next, I guess we'll both have played Starfield, which is pretty cool. But I'll be starting my playthrough the week of the 11th, probably midweek sometime. And I'll be streaming that. My plan is to stream that on Twitch and then add to the YouTube later. And I'm thinking we're going to add Brandon's to the YouTube as well. I think we were having some technical difficulties with that, so go check his out on his Twitch. And then I guess midweek, September 10th, September 11th, I'll be playing, and you can check me out playing a little bit of that. I'm going to be streaming after I've created my character. I kind of just wanted to, spend some time in the character creator and not really worry about doing that on stream. So after I create my character, I'm kind of just going to save the game, quit it out there, and then I'm going to start picking it up right there. And then, of course, I'll walk you through what kind of classes I pick or background or whatever it's going to be. And I don't know what Brandon's going to do. I don't really know how he's planning to do his playthrough, so I guess just go check it out. I mean, you can do that in real time. I think he's doing the whole thing, so you should be able to just check out him create a character, and you can go do that right now on his Twitch. So I guess let's just go over the Starfield timeline. And this was published by Bethesda, and it kind of, it states that the opening of the game takes place in 2330. And that's kind of when the game begins. That's when we'll start our journeys in Starfield. But the timeline begins in 2050, which is a little bit in the future. So let's just run through that, and then I'll kind of give my brief thoughts on that, and then we'll make it a wrap for the day. So the Starfield timeline begins in 2050. Humans first arrive on Mars by 2100, and humans are living in space. By 2156, humans arrive in Alpha Centauri, 4.37 light years away from Earth. 2159, the United Colonies are established. In 2160, New Atlantis is founded and becomes the official capital city of the United Colonies in 2161. By 2167, Cheyenne is settled by Solomon Coe, who founds the first settlement, Aquila City. 2188, Coe invites Vali to join Cheyenne in a new alliance, the Freestar Collective. The Freestar Collective is officially formed 1 year later in 2189. 2194, the United Colonies positions the star station called Clinic in orbit around Deepala in the Nerion system. The unaffiliated peoples of the Nerion system see this as a UC attempt to expand their borders and demand the UC remove the clinic. When the UC refuses, the people of Nerion vote to join the Freestar Collective, who mobilize to protect the system in 2195. 2196. In response to Freestar mobilization, the United Colonies moves a fleet into the Nerion system, and Freestar responds in kind. The Nerion War begins. 2216. The Nerion War drags on as public sentiment sours. Finally, the Treaty of Nerion is signed by the UC and Freestar Collective in 2216. Ending the conflict, the term settled systems is formalized in this treaty. 2221. The Freestar Rangers are formed as an elite, protective investigative force dedicated to serving all citizens of the Freestar Collective. 2275. Constellation is formed by Sebastian Banks. Original members include Chloe Bao, accomplished physicist; Aja Mamasa, the youngest member and Sebastian's protege; Darius Andrist, botanist and specialist in xenoflora; Bernadette Laurent, wealthy heir and adventurer; Ivardo Gill, former smuggler; and Kandari Toma, biologist and physician. The lodge is built in New Atlantis to serve the needs of the people of Constellation for generations to come. 2305. Barrett joins Constellation. 2307. The Freestar Collective begins farming on planet Vesta in the Lorna system. By 2308, the United Colonies claims that by establishing a colony in a fourth star system, the Freestar Collective has violated the Treaty of Nerion. Diplomatic talks break down, and the United Colonies lay siege to Vesta, killing anyone who stayed behind or was brought in to defend it. The Colony War officially begins. 2310. Constellation comes into possession of the first artifact and tucks it away in the Constellation archives. 2311. After several years of conflict, the Colony War effectively comes to an end with the Battle of Cheyenne as a flotilla of civilian and military Freestar Collective ships takes down the major ship of the UC Navy using hit-and-run tactics. 2315. The United Colonies Vanguard is formed as part of the UC response to the Freestar Collective's use of civilian ships during the Colony War. The Vanguard is the UC's own civilian navy, relying on civilians using their own ships, who pledge to protect the United Colonies and its interests. The ultimate reward for service is citizenship in the United Colonies. In 2319, Sarah Morgan becomes the youngest head of the United Colonies Navigation Corps, though it's a short-lived position, as the division is shut down in 2320. Cast adrift, but still eager to put her training to good use, Morgan joins Constellation. 2321. Walter Stroud, co-owner of Stroud Uckland, one of the Settled System's premier starship manufacturers, joins Constellation and becomes its primary financial backer. In 2322, former Crimson Fleet pirate Vladimir Saul joins Constellation. In 2325, Sarah Morgan becomes acting chair of Constellation. And in 2325, theologian Matteo Katari joins Constellation. 2326. 4 years before our journey begins in Starfield, Barrett finds the original artifact in the Constellation archive and knows it must be special. 2326. After months of corresponding with Sarah Morgan, graduate student and gifted scientist Noel is invited to join Constellation. 2327. Freestar Ranger Sam Coe and his daughter Cora join Constellation. In 2328, Andrea joins Constellation. 2328, Barrett convinces Constellation to purchase Station L868 and modify it to become a deep space scanner, nicknamed the the Eye. 2 years later, in 2330, is when our adventure begins in Starfield. So I guess just really quick, the timeline, I guess just a quick breakdown of this. The timeline begins in 2050. So I guess in theoretically 20 years, humans first arrive on Mars. And by 2100, we're all living in space. 50 years later, humans reach Alpha Centauri, which is about 5 light years away from Earth. So I guess that's about 150, or I guess that's about 100 years since we first settled on Mars to when we were able to reach Alpha Centauri. And I think that's where New Atlantis is. I guess it's in the Alpha Centauri system. I guess that's not confirmed, but I guess the way that it's written, it kind of leads me to believe that. So I guess just some other notable dates. 2160, New Atlantis kind of becomes the official hub and capital of the United Colonies. And about 22 years later is when the first two systems, in 2188, become the Freestar Collective. And it looks like... So I guess in those 22 years, it kind of seems that there's probably some conflict. Or I guess maybe not conflict, maybe some rising tension. And about 6 years later is when the Nerion conflict begins, where the United Colonies moves a space station very close to an independent system. And then that kind of 2 years later kind of sparks the war, and then that war goes on for 20 years, where it is, I guess, ended by a treaty, and the term settled system is formalized. So I feel like the settled systems is probably, if I had to guess, probably just where at that moment in time, 2216 is probably, which is 115 years prior to the game. It kind of seems that is where anything that's settled at that point is considered a settled system. And then a couple years later, the Freestar Rangers are formed, which is to protect and investigate all citizens of the Freestar Collective. So that's about 100 years prior to the game. The Freestar Rangers are formed, and to me, this kind of just seems like sheriffs in the Old West. They're named Rangers, which kind of, I don't know, seems very similar to sheriff in a way, and that's kind of how I'm thinking of it. And then in 2275, that's when Constellation is formed. And I think that is the main group or organization behind the main story of Starfield. At least that's what we've been led to believe at this point. So that happens about 55 years. 55 years prior to the game beginning is when Constellation is formed. So I guess it's only been around 55 years. From when the game begins, this organization has only been around 55 years. Seems that Barrett joins 30 years later, which kind of seems like the first, I guess, Constellation member of the current cast that we know today. So it looks like Barrett has been a member of Constellation for 25 years at this point. And 2 years after Barrett joins is when this, I guess, the colony war begins, with the Freestar Collective farming on another planet, which the UC sees as a breach of treaty. And 5 years after Barrett joins, he finds... Oh, actually, it seems that Barrett is not involved at this point. So Barrett joined. 5 years later, Constellation comes into the possession of the first artifact. They kind of tuck it away in their archives. After several years of conflict, the Colony Wars ends, and that is 4 years after it begins. The Colony War ended, and that was kind of it. They make it seem that there is a flotilla of civilian and military ships that take down the United Colonies Navy, and they use hit and run tactics. And a couple of years later, so 4 years later, the United Colonies makes Vanguard, and it's basically founded in response to the Freestar Rangers, but also a little tidbit of information that I think is interesting is that the ultimate reward for service in the Vanguards is United Colonies citizenship, meaning that you cannot be a citizen of the United Colonies to serve. I guess you could be, but it seems that that's the main driver, is to get non-UC citizens to participate in the civilian navy. So I guess there are people that are not Freestar Collective and not United Colonies in the galaxy, which would make sense. So there's more than two factions. This is also interesting. It seems that Sarah Morgan's going to be a prominent character. She becomes the head of a United Colonies navigator corps, and it kind of seems that division is shut down 1 year later. But she's still, eager to put her training to good use, so she joins Constellation, and that is 11 years prior to the beginning of the game. So Sarah Morgan has, dedicated a decade of her life to Constellation, and some other, members of Constellation join. Walter Stroud, it seems that he's the co-owner of one of the premier starship manufacturers. Maybe he'll give you a discount, maybe not. He's the backer of Constellation. And the former Crimson Fleet pirate joins Constellation. And then 6 years after she joins, Sarah Morgan becomes the acting chair of Constellation. And it seems that some other members join, and Barrett finds the original artifact in 2326. And he knows it must be special. And I don't know. I guess haven't played the game. I'm a little bit intrigued by these artifacts and the main story, because it seems that in the trailer there's been more than one of these artifacts. It kind of seems they found an artifact, hid it away for, Barrett finds it in 2326, and they originally find it in 2310. So this has just been in their archives for 16 years before Barrett finds it. So some other members of Constellation join. Yeah, and then I guess this is 2 years after Barrett finds the artifact in the archives. He convinces Constellation to purchase a space station, and they nickname it the Eye. So I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting. It kind of seems that they're going to be a little bit connected. Very interested. Very interested in this, because it seems like in the trailer, it seems that they have more than one piece of this artifact. So yeah, very interested to see what they're going to do here. And obviously, the conflicts and the factions are very interesting to me. Just from the trailers, it kind of seems like the Freestar Collective kind of just seems more, more ragtag, more Wild West than the United Colonies. I don't know. It seems to be a little more sterile. But yeah, I'm very excited to see kind of what the factions all stand for. I kind of wish that in the timeline, it had a little bit of what these factions, their ideals. I'm very interested to find out the ideals of these different factions and kind of what they stand for. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I guess by the next time you hear from us, both Brandon and myself will have played the game, and you will have had the opportunity as well. So very excited for the next episode, where we're gonna kind of talk about our experience. So, oh my gosh, both myself and Brandon are just incredibly excited for Starfield, and I guess you'll hear from us in about a week. So thanks for tuning into this mini episode. And yeah, I guess I just can't contain my excitement. Just super excited. So I hope that you have a great one, and I hope you enjoyed this mini episode. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.